asshole for being in my underwear at home? I live with my mom and she's on vacation, so I've had the place to myself this week, which was nice. I was walking around in just my panties sometimes because I was home alone and the blinds were shut. One morning, that's all I was wearing, my mom's boyfriend came through the door. He and my mom don't live together and he has his own place with his son who is in his early 20s. He doesn't have a key here, but he used the key that my mom put under the doormat to come in. Previously, he's only been here when my mom was here unless she ran to the store and he was already here. Luckily, I turned around and started walking to my room, so he didn't see my cleavage, thank God, but he still saw what I was wearing by seeking the back of me. Not him nor my mom told me in advance that he was coming. I got dressed and then he started yelling at me for walking around in just my underwear.
My partner of over 3 years has been living with me for the past 18 months. We're in our 30s, happy, and talk about how this is it for us, relationship-wise. There's just one problem. He doesn't want to get married, and I really do. Marriage is important to me. However, after many long discussions, I realized that I love him enough to stay and take marriage off the table, even though I really want it. Now here's the issue. I got paperwork for my insurance a few days ago, and I made a joke about how my parents are going to be really comfortable if I die, especially in an accident, because of my insurance policies and the added accidental death insurance I have. My boyfriend and I got to talking, and he mentioned how I should really change my beneficiary to him. I said no, absolutely not. I told him I would never make anyone who isn't blood or legal family my beneficiary. I said I would add him in the future if one day he decided he wanted to get married, but as it stands now, my insurance will remain as is. I also told him I wouldn't add him to the title of my house without marriage because I bought it before we got together and I own it. Now he thinks that I'm an asshole for holding marriage as a bargaining chip. We don't have to get married, but I'm not comfortable tying my finances to him without it. So am I wrong here? I talked to my boyfriend and he seemed weird in our talk. He's been weird a lot lately, but I've been excusing it. He told me that putting him on as an insurance beneficiary was partially as a joke, but then when I went on my wild tangent and included the house title that he never even mentioned, he got offended and reacted poorly. He felt like I was retaliating due to the no marriage talks and he was left with a bitter taste, which I get. I can be more than forceful and I'm also naturally passive aggressive. He said I don't have to put him on anything, but he needs me to understand that I am it for him and he wants to make his life with me. Things seem better after this. That weekend he took me to a hike with this beautiful waterfall. Once we got there, he pulled out an envelope from his jacket and a tiny bow on it and told me to open it. At first I was confused, but then I looked and the purchase highlighted date was circled with a heart. It was early August, and that was before our no marriage talks. Then I turned and saw him with the ring. I said yes. He said he knew that I would never believe he had the ring before all of this without the receipt. And he was acting so weird this whole time in order to fool me so I didn't get suspicious because this was his plan all along. He wanted a fall proposal. We'll add each other as beneficiaries once we're married, but there's no need to add him to the title of my house.
Am I the asshole for telling my fiance that his mom will never see our children? I, female 25 Asian, have been with my fiance, male 27 white, for over a year now. His mom has been overbearing since day one. For example, the first time I met her, she asked me if I was pleasing her son enough sexually. I wanted to know how many times last week I am making him finish. I also always calls him sexy and ask him to touch his arms or abs, which he doesn't think is weird, but that's a story for a different day. Lately, the past 2 months, she has been more hostile towards me whenever we are around her, saying that I am getting in the way of the relationship with her son and that I need to let him be alone with her more. My fiance tells her that he wants to spend time with me when he's not working so she can either see both of us or neither. Am I the asshole for telling my fiance that his mom will never see our children? This last time we saw her, we were eating dinner at her house, and out of nowhere, she said, "I hope your children only look like their dad." I said, "Well, we aren't going to be having kids anytime soon, so you don't need to worry about that." To which she replied, "Well, I don't want biracial kids because they're always so ugly when features are mixed together like that." Didn't even know what to say. After we left, I expressed to my fiance in the car that I was hurt by what she said and the fact that he didn't stand up for me. He said he didn't want to hurt her feelings and that she didn't mean for it to be hurtful. I told him if we ever do have children, that she will never be able to see them or be around them because I don't want our future kids to be around somebody like that. He's mad at me and keeps telling me that I need to see stuff from her perspective.
This is why you should be careful working in food delivery. When the pandemic hit, I lost my job and signed up to work for a food delivery app. I was making good money and the tips were nice too. During the first few months of working, I never had any weird experiences or customers. For the most part, everything was fine. There were times when I was a little scared of dropping off the food because it was in sketchy neighborhoods or it was dark outside, but nothing ever happened. I started feeling confident in my position and I let my guard down. One night, I got a delivery request and the tip was bigger than the total order. When I looked at the details of how to drop it off, I realized why the tip was so big. The instructions asked if I could open the door and bring it inside of the house as they were bedbound and unable to walk to the door. I knew I shouldn't do it. It was super against company policy, but I had an aunt who was bedbound and it hit a soft spot. When I opened the door of the house, I was hit with the most vile stench that's ever hit my nose. I looked around and called out to the customer. It was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, someone croaked out, "I'm back here, come on down." The voice came from a a bedroom down the hallway that was pitch black. As I walked towards the room, my stomach was turning. I entered the room and put the order down, but I didn't see anyone. When I turned around to leave, suddenly a man appeared in front of me. Part 2 of why you should be careful working in food delivery. This man was tall, wore glasses, and was balding. He was also fully functional from what I could tell. In this moment, I realized how badly I had messed up. I was cornered away from the doorway. He thanked me for dropping off his order. I politely replied, "You're welcome," and tried to step around him to leave. He took a step in the same direction at the same exact moment and asked me what I was up to for the rest of the night. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but I quickly replied that I had another order to drop off and that they were waiting, so I had to go. However, he didn't move. Somehow, I mustered up enough courage to step towards him and say, "Excuse me, I really have to go." His hand was on the door and I knew he was either going to let me go or shut it and attack me. He stared at me for a moment, then hesitated and stepped out of the way. I quickly slipped past him and made a beeline for the front door. As I twisted the doorknob, I heard his footsteps running towards me. I swiftly opened the door, slammed it behind me, and sprinted towards my car. I felt the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I looked back to see if he was running after me, but he was just standing in the doorway, watching me run away with a smirk on his face. I never should have gone inside for a delivery, and I never will again. Story time about how my friend scheduled her wedding on the day of my family's death anniversary. 7 years ago, I lost my husband, daughter, and mother to a car accident. They were hit by a drunk driver that drove through a red light and killed all of them on impact. Their deaths greatly affected me. If it weren't for my friends and years of therapy, I would be in a much lower place. I'm thankful for their support and have been able to process my grief properly. 2 years ago, I took a better paying job and moved to a different city. It's a 7-hour drive, but I travel back occasionally to visit friends and, of course, my family's graves on their death anniversary. My friend Amy announced that she was engaged last year to her boyfriend of 3 months. My friend group and I were shocked because we never met him or knew that she was even dating anyone. Nonetheless, we were happy for her. They postponed the wedding due to COVID, but now the cases in my country are less than 10 and she's having it. Last week, Amy called me to tell me that she scheduled her wedding on the same day as my family's death anniversary. She asked me not to visit their graves and attend her wedding instead. I asked her why she picked that date and she told me that she wanted to and I can't gatekeep a date. Then I asked her why I can't visit their graves and she said it's because she doesn't want my sadness and grief to take the attention away from her wedding. When I told her I wouldn't miss visiting my family's graves, things got complicated. Part 2 of how my friend scheduled her wedding on my family's death anniversary. I tried to compromise with Amy and tell her that I'd attend my family's graves after her wedding. She said she wanted my support for the entire day and dedicated towards her, but she'd think about my offer. She was there for me when they passed and I'm torn, but I refused to miss going to their graves. I called my other friends to let them know what Amy asked of me. They were livid for me as they had no idea what Amy was planning for the wedding. We arranged a Zoom call and discussed why she was being so insensitive towards me. It started off calm, then Amy just blew up. At first, she tried to explain that having a wedding on the same day would turn a negative situation into a positive one. When she realized it wasn't convincing enough, it felt as though a mask had fallen from her face and she started yelling and insulting me. She said she's tired of having to play the supportive friend role and that it's been 7 years, so I should just get over it by now or go join my family in the ground. My friends lost their anger and called her every name in the book. It hurt to have lost another person in my life, but in a sense, she never really was a good friend. None of our friends are going to the wedding now and have all blocked her on social media. My friends offered to go visit my family's grave with me and I accepted. We're planning to also make a scrapbook with my family's pictures in it. For once, I'm actually looking forward to this day. I met my boyfriend 5 years ago on a dating website. We met up for drinks and hit it off instantly. When I told him I didn't want children, he said he was okay with it as he didn't see himself wanting any either. This seemed perfect because it was a deal breaker in many of my previous relationships. The first few years of our relationship was great. We traveled, moved in together, and advanced in our careers. About 6 months ago, my boyfriend told me that he's had a change of heart and wants a family. He said that with COVID and him nearing 35, he's realizing that life is short and wants to be a father. I was shocked by this, but stuck with my position. He begged me to reconsider and at least think of it because he couldn't see his life without me and wanted to have that family with me. I took time to think on it, but no matter which way I put it, it wasn't something that I saw in my life. I don't think I'm responsible enough to take care of another human being besides myself, and there are so many things I want to do in my life that I'd have to put on hold if I was to have children. When I told my boyfriend my decision, I was expecting us to break up. However, he told me that he'd rather have me than have a family because he couldn't see himself with anyone else. He was adamant about this, and I believed him. I'm not on birth control because it affects me horribly, but we always use protection. I missed my period a couple of weeks ago, but they've always been irregular, so I didn't think anything of it. However, I also started having early pregnancy symptoms and decided to take a pregnancy test. It came back positive and I was shocked. I told my boyfriend and he was ecstatic. When I told him that I didn't want to keep it, he lost it. We got into a heated argument and this is when he slipped up about tampering with the rubber. Part 2. My boyfriend tried to force me to keep the baby. When he admitted to tampering with the rubber, I was shocked. He told me that he poked holes in it in hopes that I'd get pregnant and I want to keep it. I was horrified and I broke down. Not only was I pregnant when never planning on having children, but it was intentionally done by my partner who I trusted. I told him that I wasn't keeping it and that I was leaving him. This is when he started to guilt trip me and threaten me. I grew up in an extremely religious family, and this is a small reason as to why I don't want children. He knew that my parents are firmly pro-life, and my life would be a living nightmare if they ever found out that I was pregnant and didn't keep it. They always told me that if I was irresponsible enough to have an unplanned pregnancy, then I should be responsible enough to deal with the consequences of my actions. He also told me that he would fight me on it as he should have a say since he's the father. When I told him that I'd tell everyone how he tampered and set me up after knowing I didn't want children, he said that no one would believe me as I have no proof. I called my sister and told her everything. She let me move my things in with her and helped me make all the arrangements. My ex took to social media and told everyone that I was refusing to keep his child, getting rid of it against his will. He also called my parents and told them the same. My sister eased the blow and helped me explain everything. Surprisingly, they understood and supported me in my decision. I cut off contact with everyone who didn't support my decision, including my ex. He showed up at my house trying to get me back and saying it was okay that I didn't want children. I shut the door in his face and threatened to call the police on him if he ever tried to contact me again.